should have a very important role in coming to these, and coming up with some ideas. And not only public health, but I think groups like your ambulance, EMS groups and firefighter groups might have some additional focus on some projects. The one thing that this money can't be used for is building. It can be used for remodeling, but not build new buildings. And the caveat they have is that you can't start a program. It's a 5-year program. It's got to be sustainable after 5 years without this funding. That's a typical federal rule that you have potentially $1 billion to spend in North Dakota in 5 years, but at the end of the 5 years, and the money goes away, that the program continues on. You know how that goes. But it is an opportunity now. So I just wanted people to be aware of that as to supplement some of the things that we've tried to put as much money back home, especially when you talking about transportation issues and funding to help you. I know the caps. Nobody likes the caps, but that was part of that 1176 that was absolutely we don't get anywhere without that. So we have to live with that. And at the present time, I think, like Robin says, there's some tweaks. I think there'll be more than tweaks that will be made to fix some of the issues that weren't considered during the discussion of that legislation. So I think that's something that we're going to need the help of individual communities. Aaron Burst and his group, they do a great job for you, but it's better if there's a local commissioner or an auditor or a local person that comes to the legislature and talks about those problems, because everything that you talk about with workforce here is experienced all across the board. Nobody wants to take part in things. So from a regulatory standpoint, if we can minimize the regulatory standpoint for people to volunteer or be part of an organization, it's more than money. I think this new generation that they value their time, I think, as much, if not more than money. We have to minimize the amount of waste from a time standpoint for them to volunteer. As far as the school lunch thing, that if the constitutional measure passes, that's $130 million that has to be spent for school lunches, no matter what. No matter what. That would that's at current levels. Now that could only most likely only rise depending on the amount of students. So
how abused is that program? How abused is that program?
Well, currently we've raised the income threshold for people. I don't think there's a child in North Dakota that goes hungry. It's at 200%, 225% of poverty now. So somebody making family of four making about $75,000 a year they qualify. We also have the free and reduced lunch program, which is a federal program, which we tried to get verification as to how that federal money that comes into the state for that, if that would be affected if we pass this constitutional measure, and it will slightly. It's not a complete offset, but there will be some effect of that. I'm old enough to when I served on a school board, that was a free and reduced qualification. Also set your Title I funding. I guess that's different now, but it does have some. It could have some effect on other federal programs in the school system. So it's really a danger. I feel put it in the Constitution because you can't change it. And the thing, if it was in century code, every session, you can adjust that depending on the economic climate. So I strongly oppose it, but, you know, I think it'll get the signatures. And how do you lobby against kids eating in school lunch? I would just remind everybody that not one child goes hungry in North Dakota today.
Well, I had heard that they go home on the weekend.
That's their best meal in a day. A lot of these kids.
Yeah.
That's their best meal in a day.
I'm on community action in Jamestown. Every weekend they had 70 backpacks. Children that, whatever. They get 2 backpacks.
Well, I had heard
The
that
children shouldn't suffer because their parents are either addicts, alcoholics, more likely alcoholics, because that's really the biggest issue. And as Chris Jones said that when he was in there, that is still our number one issue, is alcoholism.
I go to Bismarck once with my grandchildren. I don't call that food. Sorry. And if
But
they don't want to eat it, and then they get a protein bar.
the parents aren't filling out the paperwork.
You know, some years ago, within the 23 session, we went to anti-shaming, so everybody gets fed, no matter what. And visiting with Bob at Jamestown Public Schools, his bad debts went from 3,000 to 30,000. And it's people who drive nice cars, but they know that my kid's gonna get fed anyway. So he was, when I chatted with him, he was like, I don't know what to tell you, because it's not just the poor children or the needy children, it's children whose parents think, you know, what the hell, I'm gonna keep that money and keep it that way. So we would be, what, the 10th state in the union that has free lunch, but we could be the only state in the union within the Constitution, and the only state in the union that gave free breakfast and lunch. So there's a lot of things in this thing, and the money's going to come from somewhere. Well, there is no free lunch, I guess, but in this case, there is to some. We had another bill that same period that raised the poverty limit of 300%, so you think in the 100,000 or so range. There is some pushback. Should everybody get? We understand there's people, young families, whatever, need help, but there are families that don't need help.
I heard my sister yesterday last night. She said, "Dad, these kids are all in." I said, "The kids may be on it, the folks who are abusing these systems, period." And I said, "That's what's so damn sad about it." I came out of the North Dakota Department of Education, renewing licenses, and this woman was sitting there. It was cold, a blanket wrapped on her, pink earmuffs, seeking artificial signatures. And she said, "We need this for school." I said, "Why don't you get in?" I didn't have good feel from me because I'm agitated. I said, "Why don't you get off your ass and go get a job and feed your kids, because you conceived and you raised a child and you gave birth to a child. So take care of that child instead of sitting on this free handout." But I look what happened in Minneapolis. I know what's happening here in North Dakota. I know what's happening in a lot of these states. The abuse that took place, and nobody gets their hand, and nobody's held accountable. It's a free sidewalk to keep walking. So yeah, what's right or wrong, I don't know, but I grant you guys that I respect you for doing it. I think there's so much abuse, and it's sad.
Well, why aren't these parents filling out the paperwork? I don't get it. They don't know how. We need to find a way for them to
It's a
help
one,
them.
the free and reduced application is a one page, it's a one page, there's no, you don't have to verify, you put your W-2 or number in there, and, I mean, there's no, they don't even check the number. I mean, whatever you put in there, they accept.
They accept it.
And, I don't know if Dan, when you were superintendent, I mean, I know superintendents that, with some of the smaller schools, they used to fill them out for parents.
Well, you have the capacity to do it in cases where you don't do it frequently, but there's situations where you just flat out tell. The parent isn't going to do this, and it's probably because of ignorance
stepped up and paid for the bill, I mean, for the meals. We
Well,
have
parochial
no
schools
car,
are part of this if they're in the school lunch program. They get free lunches as well.
The whole state.
So if this would pass in November, could it affect our PRCs? I mean, if the money, you know, if you have to pay out that $1 million, something's gonna have to go.
Well, I don't know which program is going to be affected, but there's $130 million that's not available.
Something's gonna have to go.
Some's gonna get cut. And I hope these people that fill this stuff out, that don't look at the numbers on these applications, that they're held accountable. And if they don't want to be held, if they are held accountable, they call it termination and hire new people. That will be a problem.
The other thing I have is a problem for now is with the new federal guidelines for food, the cost for these little ones. And the 130 million is based on the old numbers. So,
Look at
only
Somalia.
4 years, we could easily get
Rubio just announced it yesterday. Somalia, U.S. food bank of 76 million was destroyed by Somalia. And they're going to cut it off totally. Done.
Well, you
always
answered
say
my
let's
question.
flat
I
on
was
everything.
kind of curious what your opinion was on it.
burn out of that.
Well, but there again, it's going to be difficult to stop that momentum because people don't understand, many people don't understand, you know, the current situation. Well, when we raised the last threshold, we put $6 million into that program for free and reduced, our free lunches. I think we haven't spent half of that yet from a practical side as far as feeding people up to that 225%. So it's, you know, they're either not paying, you know, and some schools I know do have a deficit in their school lunch area, and there's people that come in and help pay that. I think that's the area that maybe we should look at is how do we shore that up, and if, you know, if the school district is having to pay that underfund, you know, for that, you know, that there might be some funding so it doesn't fall back to property taxpayers, because in the case where that's occurring, and I know school districts that have a $30,000 payment that, you know, underpayment in school lunches. As a property taxpayer, you're the ones that are paying it. You know, and that's not right either. So maybe there's there's better ways around it than that blanket approach that everybody gets free lunches. We wouldn't have that.
We won't have that. We've been flying with unlimited stream of pay, with the income source that's come into this state, and oil revenue. And I just don't understand that they won't take that thing and start tying it up, and hold it back and choke back and reduce.
Well, you don't be tied up. This next session. That's the drag line or the will we? There's no question that, you know, and you know, quite honestly, I mean, we've had the ability to fund a lot of projects and important projects for counties, for people in North Dakota, and we've done it with cash in most cases. So, you know, as we go forward, if there's a constraint on the budget, and I'm involved in a rural water system, you know, water projects, we're miles ahead of other states, and, you know, as far as putting infrastructure in the ground for, you know, for water projects, whether it's rural water, municipal water, you know, flood control, whatever the situation might be. We've had adequate funding for all of them at the same time. I mean, we have three major, you know, this Red River Water Supply Project, the Fargo Flood Control, the Minot Flood Control. I mean, to do that, all them consecutively is almost unheard of. And you know, that's 20.5% of the excise tax that funds the trust fund. that pays for that. And, extract. Extract, okay, extract.
You're buying cars.
We know what you mean.
You knew what you meant.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where, that's gonna change. I mean, we're not gonna be able to do as much. And who's gonna get hurt by that? Fargo's got how many districts? 11 districts, so they got 33 legislators in one city. They're not gonna wanna give up their flood control project or the Fargo or the Red River water supply. It always will come back to the ones that have the least amount of representation, and that's your rural water funding. And we got $70 million this last session for rural water projects. I would be thrilled if we could land somewhere around 50 this next session. And that might be a pipe dream because of the difference in the amount of funding that's going to come into the resource trust fund. So it's we've got a lot of work to do.
So where does data centers come from? And they've always discussed it. They use so much water.
Well, they reuse the water isn't the biggest issue. Their energy, as I understand it, is where the use is. The water that they use, they can reuse that same water and for a period of time. And I don't think evaporation is that big I don't think the water use is near the issue.
I think there was those early projects that didn't have the technology they have now, and now they've gotten more efficient, so they're utilizing the same water, but it's going to be electricity is the issue, and first in North Dakota, we can produce natural gas, which will help us produce more oil, which will help our revenue. If we can create electricity with natural gas, that would be a key to keeping these gas centers going. But counties, everybody's got to get in a position so that all of a sudden something shows up. You have some things because right now these things are rolling in, and all of a sudden you got to. We thought that with the hog farms. All of a sudden somebody wants to build one, and then now we need to put rules in place. We should be ahead of that. We need to be looking forward. Nobody knows what's on the horizon. Usually we wait for those decisions.
I wish the counties would be informed on their master plans. That blueprint is wrong. On all these big projects that have to be laid out on a master blueprint. And nobody seems to know about it. Well, they're in the county, they want to tell you, you entertain them. And if you entertain them for 4 or 5 meetings, they automatically feel it's a yes. And if you don't grant a yes in favor of them at the moment, they put you on the spot as if you owe that to them.
I don't know what master map.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, is there a master map? Is there a master blueprint?
How to define who's they? Who's they?
The big guys, the big corporations, they're a big master map. Huh?
Well, one of the things that I think you brought up in Emmons County, I get it. I mean, nobody, property rights is a very important issue. But of all the things we talked about today, it comes down to funding. And in North Dakota, energy is a big area of funding. One of the, and we talked about a little bit about the stripper well situation. The one technology that would bring a well out of stripper status the fastest, and the technology is there and it's used in every basin. Or the Permian Basin, for example, they use this because they have it available there. That product is CO2, and in the discussion of CO2 pipelines, that never gets brought up as to what that end use is. It's always it's that the fact that it's coming from a green energy source and it could be stored in the ground. It's actually that if that was used for enhanced oil recovery, which it would be used for, we'd have higher levels of production in the state of North Dakota at a lower cost. The other technologies that are available are less proven and they're more expensive. So there is a benefit to CO2 from a state standpoint, and, but, you know, it needs to be done right and responsibly. I get that. But, you know, and I don't think Summit, they didn't realize that soon enough when they came into the state, but I don't think we should necessarily be afraid of CO2 as a product coming into the state and being used in the state.
When it comes within 500 feet of your house, that's asinine.
Well, I mean, I get that. I
Our
don't think.
setbacks were a mile and a half. Some had never tried to find a path through there, that's all.
That's what I say, you know, they have to work with, they have to realize who owns the land and work with it.
They just come in and literally.
They're awesome people.
Yeah.
They're gonna have me. Don't think you made the election, don't think you stay around school, so they're getting pounded.
You